What is up, you amazing people? It's Nima, and today I want to talk about a game I've been playing a lot of for about the last week. And this game is called Labyrinth of Galleria, the Moon Society. Now, this game harkens back to classic dungeon crawler exploration style gameplay, with also having a lot of modern, different features and options to breathe new life into this style of game. But before we get into that, I have a little challenge for you guys. I want you to hit that like and subscribe button and tell me in the comment section below your thoughts on dungeon crawlers. What are your favorite dungeon crawlers if this is your style of game? The person with the fastest time will be crowned an internet legend. But getting back to the game, I have to say that this is one of those games that is a very slow burn at the beginning. In fact, there is so much dialogue and almost so much information pushed at you that you feel a little bit overwhelmed and maybe even concerned. Like when I first started playing this, I didn't really think there was going to be much action in it. There wasn't going to be much combat. Although that could not be further from the truth. In fact, once you really get into this game, there's a lot of gaming sessions where you will barely talk to anybody, but you will be fighting a lot of monsters and exploring a lot of dungeons, which is, I think, what we're here for in a way. Now, not to take away from the story or even the information that's provided at the beginning, it can seem like a lot, but that's not the case at all, though. This game can be either really simple or have a lot of complex strategy to it. And I really appreciate that aspect of it, of letting the user kind of decide how they want to play. Now, looking at the story, though, was something that really had me worried, honestly. As I said before, there was a lot of dialogue, and the dialogue was a lot. I mean that in the fact that they gave you a lot of information, they told you a lot of story. In time, you're wondering, what character am I? What am I doing? Because they do have you name your character, but you don't see your character. In fact, you see a young, noble, say bright, chippy young woman who's applying for a job, and she's looking to kind of be an apprentice to a witch. And this witch has other plans for her, and she has her summon a spirit that she then puts into a lamp, and then is ordered to take care of this lamp to make sure that it doesn't break or fall. Why would that be an issue? Because this lamp is going to be part of an exploration. Underneath the mansion that you're currently in lies a labyrinth of curios and treasures and things that the certain employer wants. And no, the witch is not the employer, in fact. In fact, she is just an employee herself, tasked with the job of finding these curios and these amazing treasures that have magical abilities and potentially have a lot of power. And you sort of play the role of the spirit, the one that lives in the lamp, which is crazy. You are then cast into this giant wardrobe that has magical properties that will send you to that labyrinth. Now, you're also given puppets in the form of parchment paper. Now, this is something that's not that important, but it's pretty cool because once you get used to it, then you realize that you can create your own puppets, your own characters, and name them whatever you want. But this is part of a minor gripe I have with the game, as I often make people that are in my friends group or the community here on the channel. And that was kind of an issue because when I tried to make a person of color, that wasn't an option. All of the characters are white. And that was just a little bit of an issue because not all of my community are white. In fact, I wanted to create a person of color, but that was not an option. I just feel like in 2023, we should be able to do that. Now, the actual gameplay is obviously the meat of this style of game. It's all about exploration, dungeon crawling, and discovering new items and treasures that you can either keep, sell, or equip. Now, I will say that there will be many, many game sessions where you don't talk to anyone and you're just dispatching your puppets to go and fight and to find different items as you're trying to find events and you're trying to push the story forward. This also did become a little bit of a problem for me, as there are times when you feel like you've been playing forever and every obstacle you overcome, there's just another obstacle right there. But at the same time, I'll be honest, and I'll say like none of this detracted from my actual experience from the game. In fact, this is one of those games that I just feel like is a time killer. When I say that, I mean, if I start playing at like 9 o'clock, before I know it, it's 12 o'clock. And it has happened to me multiple times where I've decided I was going to play an hour or two, and I ended up playing a lot more than that. And I think part of that is because the combat does feel fun and simple enough. You don't have to really over-strategize anything. In fact, when you're met with an enemy, you just sort of choose whether to attack, to use a magic power, to defend, and that's it, honestly. And you don't really get to choose the skills or anything that goes on from that, besides from a limit break that does kind of come up. But really, you don't do very much. Yet you do. It's very hard to explain how this is sort of automated, yet at the same time, you do have a good sense of control. Now, later on, you will also be getting these things called petitions, which is where you can petition the witch to give you certain abilities, and these are incredibly important, as they range from just certain things that you can do in combat, to exploration, to different power-ups, and even things like helping you so you don't fall into a hole. And yes, that's an issue. And honestly, I didn't really think I liked the first-person RPG Dungeon Explorer experience, but I was really wrong. In fact, visually, I found this game to be really immersive. I didn't really feel like the graphics were pushing anything too much, but they were very defined and really detailed to make you feel like you were right there in this labyrinth of monsters and treasures. And in fact, there's a little bit of horror or suspense to this, as you can be going through and exploring and finding new paths and opening new options for you to explore, and then you're faced with a couple issues that could happen. Either you fall and die, which is horrible, or you run into an overpowered monster, which then is even worse because you know you're dead. And this really emphasizes your want to keep going, to be able to call it when it's over on your terms, to return when you feel like you've had enough and you need a breather. Now, this game also has other aspects that will push the game forward. Things called reinforcements, which are sort of like skills or abilities that you have outside of combat. Now, there's a couple that are incredibly important. One that comes to mind is the wall break, which I really love this. It's like you can pretty much break any wall in that labyrinth and go through it. It's a great shortcut creator, and it also allows you to access places that you wouldn't have been able to access. As you're going through this whole thing, you will find all these helpful hints, and you'll also notice that it becomes easier as you play. You're able to handle things more than what you were before, as I think this is one of those games that you can really slowly learn as you're playing, because it doesn't just throw you right in the deep end, and it kind of walks you through it. But don't get me wrong, you will learn lessons, and those lessons will come at the cost of your time and life, as there's many times when you run into an event or a boss fight where you're just overpowered, and it's going to take you a while before you're able to actually beat this boss confidently. And that comes in the way of grinding, which you're going to do anyway. And I think that's one thing I really love about this game, is for a lot of games, I don't like being set just free and not knowing where I'm going. I like some sort of direction. But that's not exactly true. I guess I should say I don't like having no direction and no purpose. Now, in this, you have purpose. You're finding new things. You're also grinding. You're also gaining levels and building your characters up, which I love that. Like, I love grinding. It is one of the best parts of RPGs, if you ask me. Getting your characters to the point where you're no longer concerned about the enemies in that area is something incredibly satisfying to me. I like being able to just Rambo it through and destroy enemy after enemy. Yet at the same time, there is so much satisfaction from discovering a new path or a new area in this labyrinth. Not let alone when you find equipment that is going to make you stronger, or you find more stuff to sell. All of these things encompass just a really fun, great game that I think, in a way, the story might get in its way. Just a little bit. I mean, the story isn't very hard to follow, but at times there are cutscenes, there's details that are quite important, but you kind of forget about them. And again, the overarching story I think is really good and really interesting about this group that's trying to collect these powerful curios, these powerful treasures, and what they're trying to do with it and how that'll actually end. But you find yourself not caring because you're more interested in the combat and all the enemies and everything like that that's down in the labyrinth below. And sometimes you can find yourself turning off the dialogue a little bit, like kind of spacing out and more concerned about how to overcome your next obstacle in the form of combat and not following along with the story as much, even though a lot of these things are very intertwined and it really comes to light towards the end. In fact, this is one of those games that it's definitely worth it to play through. I don't want to give much more than that because I don't want to give any spoilers. This is a fun, great game that I think is incredibly accessible to a lot of people. And if you're an RPG fan, I think you're really going to like it. There is a ton to enjoy here. And, it just has everything that we like in an RPG, yet also this freedom of of being able to explore. The idea of breaking down walls, I think, is insane, as that's not something I'm used to, but being able to just, hey, I see where I'm trying to get to and it's right past this. Oh, I can just bust a hole through a wall and make my way through. And things like the attachment to the characters you create, which is incredibly important, honestly. Like, some of their abilities and some of their skills become really super valuable, put it that way. There is a lot to that, and even in the creation mode, you can decide how they level up, what stats and skills become most important to you and to the character, and how you want to direct that character. Deciding what role they play, what position they stand in, formation, all of these things really matter, but again, it's something that comes over time. And it's something that almost happens organically, which I think is really cool. Now, ultimately, I would say I didn't have any sort of performance issues with this game. Like almost all of the NIS published games, this is another one that is just perfect coming out of the gate. It's ready to go. There's no issues, no bugs, no nothing. Now, the music is something that I think is also incredibly important in this game, as it adds its own element. It's almost its own character in the way that it just kind of accompanies you on this journey through the unknown. I ultimately would recommend this game to anyone, really. I understand if you don't like RPGs at all, or, that sort of style, you're not going to like the game, okay? But everyone else who does appreciate an RPG, I think is going to have a lot of fun with this game, and really maybe give you access to a world you've never really played before. If you're like me and you've never really played these dungeon crawlers, this is a great one to get into, because it does sort of walk you through it, and maybe prepare you for more difficult ones, or more advanced ones. Although I will say there is a lot here, so not to take away from that. Just saying that this is a good starting off point for anyone who's considering getting into the dungeon crawling genre. Ultimately, yes, I would recommend picking up this game. For me, it gets an 8.5 out of 10. I thoroughly enjoyed this game, and looking back at it, I really appreciate the story and the enemies and just so much about it. I'm excited for there to be a sequel so I can play even more. But ultimately, it did take me about 40 to 50 hours to beat it, and that's a large time sink for a lot of people, but again, it's well worth your time. Anyway, that's my thoughts on Labyrinth of Galleria. In that comment section below, let me know what your thoughts are. Do you like this style of game? Do you like RPGs? Is this something that you're looking forward to? Something that you're kind of wanting to dip your toe into? Something that you want to get into? Anyway, anything and everything down below would be much appreciated. I love talking with you guys. Thank you guys for checking out this review. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. You're amazing. I love you. Talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.